criticizing former President Trump and making the case for Vice President Kamala Harris as the best person to lead the country. Trump continues to lie about crime in America, like everything else. Guess what? On his watch the murder rate went up 30%, the biggest increase in history. Meanwhile, we made the largest investment, Kamala and I, in public safety, ever. Now the murder rate is falling faster than any time in history. Violent crime has dropped to the lowest level in more than 50 years, and crime will keep coming down when we put a prosecutor in the Oval Office instead of a convicted felon. Kamala and Tim will protect your freedom. They'll protect your vote, your right to vote. They'll protect your civil rights. And you know Trump will do everything to ban abortion nationwide. Oh, he will. You know Kamala and Tim will do everything they possibly can. That's why you have to elect the Senate and House to restore Roe v. Wade. Folks, I've got 5 months left in my presidency. I've got a lot to do, I've got a lot to do. I intend to get it done. It's been the honor of my lifetime to serve as your president. I love the job, but I love my country more. You know, Willie, you're right. He hit all of the notes. It was late, but there were people staying up, of course, on the West Coast, Nevada, in Arizona, of course in the Central Time Zone not quite so late. The president delivered. But this was a night obviously about Kamala Harris. She came out earlier in the evening. The place just exploded. She's really stepped into this moment. JFK said so many years ago, when you see daylight you run to it. That's politically why he ran in 1960, the daylight opened up. I don't know of anybody who expected her to excel in the way she has, to just absolutely explode on the national stage the way she has and as positively as she has. You are seeing the numbers and the polls, you are seeing it in the number of volunteers. It is pretty extraordinary, and last night was the first of her convention, and what a star turn she took. One of the reasons that people supported President Biden staying in the race, didn't want him to drop out, was because they were worried about what would come next. And likely it would be Vice President Kamala Harris. Well, talk to them now, less than a month, believe it or not, since Joe Biden dropped out. He dropped out on July 21st, today is August 20th. It has been less than a month since all of this happened. It is unbelievable. Talk to those people now and they'll say, I was wrong, I underestimated Kamala Harris, shame on me. She has done an incredible job, her campaign has done a great job. We have heard about all of the polling done and the enthusiasm in the Democratic Party. We saw it in that hall for President Biden, for Hillary Clinton, for AOC, for all of the people who came out, for the leaders of the union, for the victims of draconian abortion laws across the country. There was living, breathing enthusiasm, the manifestation of everything we have seen on paper for the last couple of weeks. Here is the very sophisticated analytics of it. It felt good. It just felt really good from start to finish. Biden, by the way, Donnie, you are joking about it, you can't fake that. No. That's my next point. People either enjoying themselves or they're not. I will say people always ask, well, how do you do the show? Well, we have for 17 years, what's the formula, how do you guys do it? We like each other. We have fun. True. And everybody that comes on, we have a good time. I mean, you look at a convention like that, you can't calculate it. You have in 2 Republican candidates, 2 guys who at candidates, 2 guys who at least publicly. In their public personas and project angry. They're looking for retribution, they're looking for people to blame, they're looking for a reason to be upset. They're looking for a reason, to resent. You look at the Democratic National Convention and I swear I never thought I would see it in my lifetime. As a Republican I thought it is just too easy to beat Democrats because they're afraid to have a good time, they're afraid to be joyful, they're afraid to wave the flag. I will tell you, what Republicans feared the most last night was the joy but also the chants of, USA, USA, USA. Why did that ring true? Because the Republican Party has sold itself to a man who lies about America every day and says we're a nation in decline. Who lies about America every day and says we're a nation of losers. Who lies about America every day and says that we are just on the verge of collapse. No, not true. The data doesn't bear it out economically, militarily, culturally, socially, in every way. This is a great country, so now the Democratic Party can cheer, USA, 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 and it is a hell of a contrast with the presidential candidate on the Republican side that talks down about America every day on the stump. You know what is interesting about that, and I don't know if you are finding it as you talk to Trump voters, that joy, that jubilation, the feel-good is going to the voters. When I talk to people voting right now for Kamala, that's excited. You talk to people voting for Trump, they're upset. It is trickling down to the populace and working its way back. I think elections are run on gut, on feeling and emotion, and it is all certainly going Democratic. Final point on Biden, his one when he talked about I was too young to be a senator, I was too old to be president and I gave it my best, that's a summation of this man's entire career, that's 50 years summed up. This goes well into your piece, for the sink, the rise of the brat pack and the new Democratic political style. My daughter just gave me a tutorial on being brat the other night. I was like, okay, but it is a thing. It is a thing. Obviously we are talking about the bringing story here is one candidate replacing another and the kind of triumphant of Kamala Harris taking over this party. But I think there's a deeper story beneath the candidate swap, which is kind of a style. A new style that we've actually talked about over the years on this show where things like storytelling, emotion, speaking to the gut, not just being policy-minded but kind of throwing a better party. That's a great set of words. You know, these things have been neglected in recent years by Democrats. We talked at the end of last year on this set about, there was no movement. There was this kind of claim of an existential threat to democracy but no movement, and people weren't acting like it. I think with the ascension of Kamala Harris and the people she is listening to, which is more important in a way than one individual, there is a new political style in town. We are seeing with this DNC a Democratic Party that is not just wonky but knows how to generate joy, knows how to speak to people in those guttural places, knows how to tell that kind of story. To your last point about that kind of joy that spreads, there's a weird word for this in political junkie circles. Mobpersuasion is the idea you don't persuade by watering down your stuff to cater to moderates in diners in western Pennsylvania. You actually persuade by revving up your people so they can't stop talking about their excitement, and their uncles over here, their excitement, their neighbors over here, their excitement. So I think we are seeing a Democratic Party that's not so worried about moderate voters and is actually more worried about making people feel things in ways that create a kind of contagion of joy and enthusiasm. Joe mentioned something really important, that you get your piece as well, and that is reclaiming patriotism. This is not by accident. All of the signs in the arena said USA on them, they were chanting USA. This was a party, and our mutual friend, Governor Westmore has talked about this. I'm not ceding patriotism to Donald Trump. Just because you call yourself patriot and have flags, it is not about staging a coup at the Capitol. How important is that part of the message? It is so important. It is reclaiming patriotism and reclaiming freedom. Both of these things were wrongly conceded to the far right. Can I say why they were wrongly conceded? Let's not go back and pretend. Democrats were afraid. Absolutely. I would be on sets with them in the 90s and early 2000s and they would say, America is great. They couldn't go, yes, it is. They could not do it. It was reflexive. It was weird. It is like, well, but look what we're doing here, look what we're doing there. They couldn't do what Democrats learned how to do after Donald Trump started trashing America and saying, you know what? America is great. We still have a long way to go to be a more perfect union, but we're doing that together, and that promise makes America even greater. Democrats, I don't know when they figured it out. They figured out a couple of years ago, but they figured it out at the same time Republicans, exactly, started nominating a candidate who literally doesn't get America. Yeah. Who literally stomps on America. Who literally says that America is in decline, that America is terrible. What did he say? What was his inaugural speech? American carnage. By the way, I still am amazed. Talked about American carnage when crime rates were at a 50-year low and illegal border crossings at the southern border were at a 50-year low, he talked about American carnage. That's how wrong he was about America being bad then, that's how wrong he is about America being bad now. Yeah, and I think he has his story of America, and what was missing was, as you said, because I think a lot of Democrats felt it was cringe to be patriotic in that way. There was not always a counter-patriotism, a more progressive version of patriotism, and I think you are finding it now. It is not a patriotism that erases hard truths about America history, it doesn't need to lie or distort, but it is about